Okay. We're interviewing Mr. William Wolf. This is tape 1. It's 22 May 2001, and we're at the Lexington Avenue Armory in Manhattan. Okay, Mr. Wolf, tell me whereabouts you were born and raised.
I was born in New York City and raised basically as a youngster in Rockaway Beach, and then moved to Sunnyside and to Woodside, Queens, and then from Woodside, Queens, that's when I went into the Army.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about your parents?
Well, my father was an electrician. My mother was a volunteer in the, I think it was a women's voluntary service during World War II, you know, very active people. My father's family came from the Deep South. They were, in fact, were Confederates during the Civil War. That's interesting. My mother's family came from Russia, as far as I know. They were both born here. My father was in World War I as a seaman. He was in the Navy. Okay.
Any brothers or sisters?
No, unfortunately, I'm an only child.
Okay. Whereabouts were you when Pearl Harbor started?
I was in college. I was in Queens College. I
Uh-huh.
attended college. And then I enlisted in, a little vague, January of 42.
Okay.
Volunteered, and then...
At that point, had you graduated from
no,
college?
I finished my third year. And well, I was in my third year because I went into the service actually at the end of 42, I think. And then I went into the Army Air Corps. First, went down to Atlantic City with basic training. If that didn't kill you, then you survived there, and then I went up with what they had a program for what they call aviation students first. And then from there, I went to Maxwell Field as an aviation cadet and graduated. I was the graduating class of 44A, I believe.
Oh, okay.
44B, yeah.
Going back a little bit, did you have to go to a regular basic type training for 8 or 12 weeks, or?
Well, I did it in Atlantic City, and then as the aviation student was a pre-cadet program.
I see.
You flew in little Piper Cubs and things like that, and there was some, and there was all sorts of academic work, which I don't remember right now.
Did you fly the Stearman biplane at all?
Yes, that's another story. I graduated from 44B as an aviation cadet, and then I went to primary training school in Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay.
And I flew Stearman biplanes there, you know, the old PT-13 or 17.
17, I think.
Right. Unfortunately, I had a depth perception problem, and they felt before I killed myself and anybody else because I could never judge how far I was off the ground due to an eye problem. So I went to Nashville from there, and then went to Coral Gables, Florida, Pan American Navigation School. And I graduated there as a navigator and a second lieutenant in the Army Air Corps. It was an experience going to Coral Gables because we were stationed and bivouacked or bunked at the University of Miami, Coral Gables, in a woman's dormitory. You know, it was real rough. However, the instructors of there were civilian instructors from Pan Am that time, and we were trained extensively in celestial navigation. We used to fly these old crates that I think indicated about 90 knots down to Cuba and back. You know, that was it was an incredible experience. So I was trained to go into the Air Transport Command and fly the hump. So naturally with what the Army did, we were unfortunately having a lot of excessive casualties in the 8th Air Force, and they needed people. So I was sent to the 8th Air Force. I think I'm trying to remember sequentially. I went to the 88th Provisional Bomb Group or something, the Naval Park bombing range, and then we assembled our crew together there. And from there, we went up to Goose Bay, Labrador, and then flew over to England.
Now, this was on a B-17?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My first acquaintance with the horror war was in Goose Bay, Labrador, where one of the airmen walked into a propeller. And it was a horrible sight. And then we flew over, and we had some weather problems, so we flew individually. So, you know, each plane I navigated over. It was pretty rudimentary in those days, and usually celestial and etc. And then we were in Reykjavik, Iceland for 2 weeks, which we were weathered in. I remember two things about that. Number one was the horror of the fish, the stinking of fish. And number two, the delicious smell of the bread. There was a baker there who made the fresh bread. There's nothing like an odor of fresh bread. From there, I went to, we flew to England. All the bombing bases were in Sudbury. I was in the 486 Bomb Group, 833rd Squadron. And so we flew there. That was in East Anglia. And as soon as we got off the plane, the buzz bombs started coming. That was unwelcome. Very interesting. You hear that stops, and you know where the stupid things are going to blow up. And then we did some little training there. And then I flew 35 combat missions over Germany and France, mostly over Germany. The first one, I have a list of them here actually, which is pretty ancient, this piece of paper. First one was in Flanders, the next one we got hit in Magdeburg, Germany, and the last one was in Frankfurt, Germany. But I've been to Berlin, and it was not very pleasant. I don't know, do you want to discuss this? Or?
Sure, sure.
Okay. The worst missions that we had to fly were at a place called Merseburg, Germany, because the Germans put a lot of their factories underground. However, one thing they couldn't put underground was synthetic oil plants. And without oil, they couldn't function. And these were the most heavily defended areas that there were. And we've had some unusual experiences. I'll mention three. Number one, which made me a fatalist, was the navigator has a very important tool, a pencil. You also, when you're up and you're flying, you know, about 32,000 feet, it's 50 degrees below zero. You had what they call a flak suit, which was pretty heavy, but try to protect you, and a helmet and stuff. So I dropped my pencil over the target. I don't remember where it was, which one it was. Maybe it was Bremen, I think, I'm not sure. And when I got up, right where my head was a hole this big. I mean, just God, I mean, it's incredible, incredible. Then another experience I had was, that I can remember, was the concept of flying, you wanted to fly as tight a formation as possible so that the power of all these machine guns on the plane, you know, were concentrated. Because when you spread out, the fighters could pick you off once. And when you fly that way, it's very dangerous because you have all sorts of turbulence. Anyway, as you know, the B-17 had a large tail, and the B-17 came right under, it hit a chin turret, you know, and knocked it off. And I remember seeing the poor bastard who was the tail gunner clawing at his chest, because we had what we call these parachutes that used to snap on, and he didn't have his parachute on. So that was another thing. And the other thing which we got an award for was we were over Merseburg, and we were just hit like hell with flak and knocked 2 engines out. And this was on 30th November 44. We had two engines shut out by flak well over the target. And we dropped our bombs, and then we couldn't keep up with the formation. And you know, that's pretty dicey because that's how they... So we got down to the deck, and to keep flying, we had to throw everything out. You know, machine guns, every stupid thing. And about 45 minutes, no, it was longer than hours later, we got into the armies had just captured part of Belgium. And we spent 45 minutes riding around trying to find an airfield, but we finally landed. You know, there were burning planes all around and stuff. And unfortunately, you know, we were listed as MIA, missing in action, you know. But we were there for about 2 weeks till we could get a flight back to our base. And that was a very, I couldn't do it today. You were young then. In fact, a funny thing is that, digress a moment, you know, I have things like the Confederate Air Force and all these old things who remake the planes. And
Right.
So there was one came out to Republic Aviation Airport. I took my grandson there, and my wife. And of course, when you're a navigator and a bombardier and a pilot, there's a trap door in the front nose of the plane, and I said I couldn't even get up with a ladder. So I go over there, my wife took lung book, and she said, "My God, is that where you sat?" And my grandson comes in, this little guy, and he says, "Where are all the seats for the passengers?" You know, they didn't know anything about it. But it was really unreal how ancient those things looked, you know, that you really flew in those things.
Now, how many crew members were on a B-17?
10, if I recollect.
10?
Yeah. And we had the bombardier, pilot, co-pilot, and flight engineer, and gunners.
Mm-hmm.
And then that poor guy was in the little belly gun down the bottom there. And then he had,
It was always the short guy.
where they had to land and they couldn't retract it and they couldn't get him out, you know. I mean, it's just horrible stories that happened with these things. Just horrible.
Usually it was a little guy that was in the ball turret.
Yeah. And, you know, there were some funny things too, like with we had I remember the name, a gunner, a fellow named Smokey Chapin. He's from Kentucky. And he wouldn't wear his flak suit. He sat on it. Because he said if something happens down there, he doesn't want to live. And so anyway, we got nominated for Crew of the Week. I have a picture here. I don't know if
Yeah, if you'll hold that up, let me try to zoom in on it with the camera. Now, whereabouts are you in that picture?
I'm over here. The good-looking guy in this end there, right?
Okay. Just hold it there for a second and I'll zoom in on each member here. Now, did you normally fly with the same crew
Yes.
most of the time?
Yes. It's funny.
Okay, I got it, sir.
Okay, sir. You know, there's a couple of pictures of, well, I'm sure there's, you know, planes with contrails in a combat mission. You see that?
Oh, yes.
That's what it looked like. It's very cold up there.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Okay.
And this was only thin metal skin, and you had these heated suits on. And if you touched like your machine gun with your bare hand, your skin would come right off. And of course, the Army, in its wisdom, making me a navigator in the 8th Air Force, never sent me to gunnery school. So I never saw a machine gun until I went into combat.
Now, did your airplane have a name?
Yes, the name of our airplane was Umbriago, and we named that after Jimmy Durante. And we got a telegram from him and everything. When we were written up for this Crew of the Week, he sent, "These are my boys, and I'm proud of you," or something like that. He sent us a telegram, you know. Yeah. This is the emblem that went on your leather jacket. I don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I still have it. I have a leather jacket with this on.
Yeah, let me get a close-up shot of that. Now, I Are you holding that?
I have no idea if I'm holding it right. And here's the zipper, so it's gotta be right.
Oh, okay, all right. Let me zoom in on that. That looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was the 833rd Squadron insignia.
Okay, I got it.
Okay,
I got it.
all right. You were asking about
The name of the aircraft?
yes, and also, I considered it, we all considered it bad luck, you know. You always wanted to finish with your own crew.
Uh-huh.
And then you had religious holidays that interfered, you know, and, but I felt that the good Lord would forgive us, you know. My religion, Yom Kippur is a very holy day,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the other boys had other holy days, you know, but I flew because I wanted to finish with the same crew.
Mm-hmm.
The end of the 35th mission, we literally, all of us got down on the ground and kissed the ground, because that was it for us, you know,
Mm-hmm.
over there. It was interesting in many ways, living near a small village in England, you know,
Uh-huh.
and going to London on flat leave, they used to call it. You used to get passes, you know, you had to get a break. And I talked to a lot of combat infantrymen who said, I would never want their job. And they say they would never fly up there, you know. It's a crazy war because you'd fly out, the missions lasted 8 to 10 hours.
Uh-huh.
And in those days, the best thing that tasted it, we got down to about 10,000 feet, you could take your oxygen mask off. It was that first puff of a cigarette. You know, we used to buy them for 5 cents a pack. You know, things have changed.
Oh, yeah.
They really did taste good, I'll tell you for sure.
Now, when you flew, did you always have like fighter escorts? Or?
Not all the time, but most of the time.
Uh-huh.
Most of the time. But then we got attacked by jets, the German jets. I saw those.
That must have been quite an experience to see those.
Oh, if they had a lot of them, we had real serious problems. Real serious problems, that's for sure. But there were so many other things could happen. You know, like when you're dropping bombs, the bombs in the plane above you, I've seen them go
Mhm.
through the wings of the planes below. Or if you're tail end Charlie, you know, and you get hit by fighters, and it's a real mess. And one of the things about this type of strategic bombing is that you'd fly, and then we go to what they call an IP, initial point, and then the target's like over there, and the bomber stream doesn't deviate. It all turns because your bombs are set to go off, you know, everything was done. And the Germans would just fill the air over the target like a box barrage. Just, throw up. You're just going into a load of steel. And I don't know how we did it, frankly, because you saw what you were going to go into, and yet you just couldn't deviate.
Uh-huh.
You know. And if you hit a headwind, like I remember once over Bremen, we hit a 140-knot headwind, and we were only indicating 160 knots or so on a B-17, so you're practically standing still. Go over that damn target for about 10, 15 minutes and flak, and it's only a miracle that got. We had, I think the 8th Air Force was 50-some-odd thousand people killed. The percentage was very high, much higher than the infantry or anything like that. There was a lot of us got killed. It was very, very sad.
Now, how many planes participated on a typical mission?
Oh, about 1,000, 1,500. I mean, it was just awesome. And one of the danger things was assembling. You know, it's not so simple to assemble 1,500 planes. So we were circling over the England there, and then bomber stream, and there were a lot of mid-air collisions. Because sometimes the weather was so bad that you couldn't see. So there was a lot of problems in that area there.
Now, what was your typical day like? If you were going on a mission, did they get you up at like 4 o'clock in the morning? Or?
Yes. Yeah, 4 o'clock in the morning, and you had breakfast, such as it was, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went to your briefing. The navigators and had their own separate briefing, and a pilot, co-pilot, and the gunners had their separate briefing. There was the general briefing, and then you split up. And then you got onto these trucks, you know, and you went out to your plane and loaded up all your gear, and checked everything, you know, the pilot took the plane. And then you sat there, waited, and then bing, you started taking off, and then you were assembling, and then when you got over the channel, you had to fire your machine gun to clear, make sure everything was right. And then I was busy navigating, and the pilot was busy flying, and everyone was busy praying, you know. Not literally, you know, when you were young and foolish, it was, you had a different mindset then.
Now, most of the damage you suffered was mostly flak, or did you take fire from fighters too?
Both.
Both?
But I would say mostly flak, because we were concentrating on these oil targets. And,
was that in
that was
Polosti, or?
No, well, that was in Romania. The Germans one was Würzburg and Leipzig area.
I see.
Way in, you know, kind of way back. So you had accidents, you had collisions, you had flak, you know. What else? If your heated suit went out, you froze to death. I mean, it was just 50 degrees below zero. Well, if your oxygen went out, you got about 10 seconds and you were gone at that altitude.
Now, what altitude did you normally fly at?
32,000 feet. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
Pretty high, and then those things are pretty slow. I mean, you think what our bombers can do today, you know, B-1, B-2, this thing going about 170 knots, sometimes you make 150 miles an hour ground speed. Got a tailwind, maybe 200, you know, it's pretty slow to be over there. And then planes ditched in the English Channel, crashed on the way in, all sorts of goodies happen. And then, as I was starting to say, you get back into the relative comfort of a bed, you know? We had Quonset huts, you know, that's where you slept. Then either you flew the next day, or you had a rest, or you did a training mission. And sometimes, as I said, we'd get to London or Scotland. Then the V2s started to come over. That was terrible. Those are the ones that were no warning at all. You know,
How were those? Were they fairly accurate? I mean,
no, they weren't. I mean, they just hit. They were aimed for the town of London. Period. Where they hit, nobody knew.
Okay.
Nobody knew.
So did you have any land close by the airfield at all?
Well, the V2s, the V1s, yes, we had some come in. Not on the field, never hit the field. But the V2s, we never had those, but they hit mostly in the London area. Pretty rough. I don't know how those people stood it, but that was something in the woods. Then, I don't know what else you want to know about over there.
Now what happened when you completed your 35th mission?
35 missions, right.
Okay.
Then, I forget the time frame, but I think within a week or two, we went home. I went back on a boat. I don't remember the name of the boat. It was a huge boat. You know, big transatlantic line. It took about 4 days, 5 days.
Now, did your airplane stay there in England, and
Oh, yeah.
somebody else just took it over?
Right. And then from there, I went to, I think I had leave, you know. They sent us to Atlantic City again. At this time, it was rest and recuperation, you know. We stayed at a nice hotel. From there, I went down to Hondo, Texas. And the only one who ever heard of Hondo, Texas, I think, was Jack Garner. He was Vice President of the United States. He came from Naval. It was just around that area there. And from there, I flew up and got married. And it's funny, we were married at the Waldorf. And that was the time, I don't know if you remember, but I was flying up from Texas, and a plane, an Army Air Force plane, hit the Empire State Building.
Yeah, we were talking about that
They
last
thought
night.
it was me. It wasn't me. I mean, but I flew at the same time.
Really?
And my future wife thought that that's what happened.
Uh-huh.
So that was an interesting thing. Then we...
Did you happen to see that?
No, I read about it.
Uh-huh.
Then I went down to, from there, I went back to Maxwell Field. And I was a cruise control instructor on B-29s. That was working with the flight engineer to have the optimal setting for the maximum usage of fuel, okay? And I was supposed to be going over to Japan, fly over there.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, VE Day came,
Mm-hmm.
and then it wasn't necessary for me, then VJ Day came, and then I was separated from the service.
Whereabouts did you separate from?
Fort Dix.
Fort Dix?
Yeah. From there, I I rejoined the reserve. I became in the active reserve. And I was recalled in the Korean War.
Uh-huh.
But I was, that time, what they call air installations officer, which had to do with construction and electrical things like that. Okay. And my wife and I went to Olmsted Air Force Base, which is no longer in existence. That's near Middletown, Pennsylvania. That's where that atomic thing happened, the 10-Mile Island.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The base is now closed, but it was a depot. It was part of the Air Material Command depot. Okay. So they had procurement. I didn't know what the hell they wanted to do with me. I was there a year. And I worked out of the air installations offices, which is like the Army the engineers.
So you were no longer flying at that
No,
point?
I was no longer flying. I was a captain then, and of course I had my problems because I pulled Officer of the Day on New Year's Eve, and I had a drunken general in my hands, and that's very hard to handle. Captain handling a drunken general. But anyway, I get an assignment to the headquarters Eastern Air Procurement District at 666 Madison Avenue, and I lived in New York, and that's where Phyllis and I went back to New York. And I became, I was in the procurement. I was head of what they call the Facility Advisory Office. When the Air Force awards contracts for the procurement of material or production of helicopters or something, the contractor has to prove that A, he has the ability, B, has the finances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We had to pass on that and review that, before the contract was awarded. So that was very interesting, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there about a year. The first thing that happened when I got there, now I had been in an electrical business. I knew something at that time. My father was an electrician, as I told you, so I worked with him before his recall. First thing, the deputy commander calls me into his office. I don't know what the hell he wanted. He's building a house. He wanted to consult with me on all. He also, when I was discharged, pulled a trick on me. They sent me, it was a 2-star general, and he was very nice. But he sent me a telegram saying that my discharge was void, and I had been assigned to France. I was running around like crazy. It was a phony setup. They had a good laugh. Then I stayed in the active reserve, and I had a mobilization assignment in the Air Force Systems Command, and I went to Air Staff and Command School, became a major, and then I got promoted to lieutenant colonel, and then at the age 60, I retired, and I status, you know, with all the rights, Lieutenant Colonel USAF retired.
Sure.
And, but it is very hard being in a reserve too, because when you work for somebody, you get 2 weeks vacation a year, and you have to go away for 2 weeks, you know.
Right.
So it's a family sacrifice in
Yeah.
many ways.
Plus your drill weekends.
That's right. Yeah, weekends, yeah. So that was a interesting thing. And what else can I tell you?
Let me just ask you this. Do you keep in touch with any of the fellows you flew with? back there?
Well, I am a member of the 486 Bomb Group Association. Unfortunately, none of my crew members ever joined that I know of.
Oh, really?
So I keep in touch. I don't really go to conventions.
Uh-huh.
But like I've been over to, Phyllis and I, that's my wife, traveled to London once on vacation. I took the train up to Sudbury and visited the old airfield. Of course, there was a young man there when we were flying. He was about 16, and he was like a mascot of the group and took a very big interest in the history of it. And we corresponded, and he wanted some things I had, and maps and stuff, you know. And I met him there, and we spent the day together. But you go out to the airfield, I mean, there's an couple old Quonset huts left, you know, and, you know, just an old overgrown runway.
It's not being preserved or anything?
No,
It's just in ruins, basically?
In fact, there was a marvelous picture, 12 o'clock high.
Yes.
It's just like that. You remember the beginning, he's at the airfield, he sees this guy. Just like that. They're all gone. Yeah. And I did go to we've traveled extensively, and then I went to Omaha Beach once and stood there and looked what those poor guys went through. The German pillboxes are still there, and I had flown over there, you know. I was in the Battle of the Bulge and all those things, and just to look at that, it was terrible. It was pretty bad.
Is there any one particular experience that stands out amongst all the rest during your war
I frankly
years?
feel that the one I told you about, where the hole was there, it really made me. You got to think a lot. You know?
Oh yes.
Because my head would have been blown completely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just pretty awful. And I've stayed active in veterans organizations like this Aviators Post of the American Legion I belong to. That's only for rated personnel. It's a unique country. I belong to the Air Force Association, the Iron Gate chat. They were started by Matt Krimmer over at 21 Club here. That's where we meet. In fact, our ex-president was General Duda, 4-star. He was former Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and it's a very interesting thing. And I was also involved with the Civil Air Patrol for a while. I was the Chief Financial Officer for the New York State Wing. And that's a very, very fine organization. They do very good work. They fly search and rescue missions. In fact, during World War II, these guys used to fly out over the Atlantic looking for submarines, drop bombs in these little civilian planes from the Civil Air Patrol, which was an auxiliary of the United States Air Force. So I am active on that type of thing.
Okay. Any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to add? Is there any other pictures that you've got there that you'd like us to get on tape?
I don't think so. I mean, these are just, well, this was that Crew of the Week thing. I don't think you can pick this up.
Yeah, I think I can. Just Okay, I got it.
I ended my I became an automobile dealer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I owned a Chevrolet dealership, so.
Whereabouts was that?
In Long Island City called Major Chevrolet. And I've retired from that. And, we moved to Manhattan 18 months ago, and now we're moving back to Long Island because my wife from Manhattan, well, I guess we're not cut out from Manhattan. Well, we go to the opera a lot and things like that, but do a lot of cultural things like that, but she likes the country very much.
Okay. And did I ask if you had any children?
Yes, I have 2 children.
2 children?
A boy and a girl and 2 great-grandchildren.
Oh, great. All right, well, I think this is a good place to end.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
okay.